Hi, this is Scott Schrader here to talk to you about Parashah Bo, and I would like to direct you to Exodus 10, verses 1 through 3, a particular portion of that parashah. Here, God has asked Pharaoh through Moses how long he would refuse to humble himself in verse 3. So, this is God directly speaking to the Pharaoh and saying, how long is it going to be until you humble yourself? Um, that's quite a question to be asked by God himself. And we still see this defiance today, how man exalts himself above God. Pharaoh exalted himself. He was defiant to God back then, and man still has this problem where we tend to exalt ourselves above God. Man, we have this idea in the secular world that science and human intelligence is the cure-all, that we're actually above all of this, and that we can actually find a way to live forever eventually just through science. God, God also asks his children in his service the same question at times. He asks us, how long is it going to be until you humble yourself? And so it's not only a malady of world, we can't expect them to act like believers, but he asks this of us sometimes. We can get into a tough place. My motto has always been, when God asks you something like that or is convicting you in that area, that it's better for you to humble yourself than for him to get involved in that. And so that would be my advice to you as one who has experienced the other end of it. We have a tendency to worship ourselves and our accomplishments, and this is true for Christians, believers, as well as worldly people. Pharaoh is an example to us of where this attitude leads us. We see in the end that Pharaoh was destroyed. His army was destroyed. He went through all these plagues because he would not humble himself. And if we won't humble ourselves, eventually, for our own good, God will get involved and do the job for us. And so it behooves us to seek to do that. And you'll see that it's very important and very healthy for us to do this. When we look at the word, and this word is ane, and has to do with being humble. It's to humble, to be occupied with, respond, and become dependent. And so God wants us to be occupied with him. He wants us to respond to him. He wants us to understand that we are dependent on him. This is our position. This is the way things are. It's not a pride thing on God's part. This is just the way things have been made, the way things are. And so let's look a little bit at this word. The first letter, the yin, is an I, and it has to do with understanding. And the second letter is a nun, which is the seed. And the third letter is the he, which has to do with beholding. And so we see this understanding is the seed of beholding, of revelation. And so to respond to God brings us to this place where we become humble. It's a matter of seeing and understanding and having revelation of who we are before God. And so I'm just encouraging you to respond to God. He's always asking you to draw close to him. If you draw close to him, he'll draw close to you. He is good to all those that call upon him, all that call upon his name in truth. And so spend time with him, worship, pray, study, and you'll come into that awe of him and get a glimpse of him. You'll get that revelation from him. That maybe it's that rhema word that comes out of his word as you're studying. Maybe he's speaking to you, or you have a vision, or you're just caught up in worship and you catch that glimpse, that awe of him. And this will show you just who you are. When you realize who you realize you are dependent on him. He causes his sun to shine on the just and the unjust. Without him, there's no sun. Without him, there's nothing that's held together. The atom doesn't stay together, and nothing does in the universe. We are totally dependent on him. And when you realize this, it changes you, and you go into your proper place. You become that person, and you have that purpose that you're supposed to in this creation, this age. And it's another subject to get into, but the age has to do with birthing. Every age is a birth. Something is being birthed in this age. I believe that believers are part of the product of that birth. And so spend that time with him. Get in that place with him that you can become all that he's called you to be, and that you'll be right with him. When you spend time with him, you'll be right with him. He'll correct you, put you in that place, and he does it in love. And believe me, he would much rather. I believe this is an exhortation. Would much rather have you come and humble yourself before him and spend time with him. See your dependence on him. Just be with him. It's going to make you humble, make you see things correctly, and that's really what humility is seeing things correctly. He would rather that happen than him having to have you spend time with him. Kind of as the motto I always say is, when God's telling you to spend time with him and you don't, you will. You might end up being sick or something, where you'll have to wait. You won't have any choice but to be with him. So it's easier, it's better. You'll find this as you grow in the Lord, that it's much easier for you to just respond to him rather than him having to respond to you not responding. Have a blessed day.